I feel like we're sort of these we're just jumping in and out of characters. And I feel like everything is, maybe there's upgrades in the video game. There used to be, like, I think about it in terms of like Fortnite, because my kid plays Fortnite. It's like, and I do too sometimes, I can't lie. But Fortnite gets an update, and then like what used to be a mountain is now like it has now become a building or something like that, but it still looks kind of like a mountain, but it's a building now. And I almost feel like maybe that's kind of what's happening in our reality. So when these pyramids they still exist, but maybe they have a different function. They used to have a different function in an old version of the video game a long time ago, kind of thing.
Bodega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Bodega and sharing one of yours. Click that like. Yeah! If you're new here, subscribe and have the bell hit for notifications to stay up to date on all of the new content.
Fall of 1943 in the Philadelphia shipyard, a ship, the USS Eldridge, underwent a mind-bending experiment. Or should I say, the Philadelphia experiment. Perhaps you've heard of it. So what this was the U.S. Navy was conducting an experiment to try to camouflage their ship from the enemy radar. But not only did they camouflage the ship, it actually disappeared for a brief moment, or at least that's what's been reported by some. Now, so the stories that emanated from this were ranging from nothing more than a slight glitch to time travel, portals, and sailors being fused into the hull of the USS Eldridge. Was this their first attempt at a modern time world jumping, or a timeline jumping, or was it just a fantastical story made up by a sailor? I don't know, but we would love to find out. Hey everyone, I'm Rye, the Bodega, and tonight I got Brad from the Awaken Podcast joining me again, and we're going to just have some great discussions. We'll be talking about a lot of topics, and I hope you enjoy the venture. And as we add these all to the Codex of Curiosities. Now, for the show, you guys know all the links are found in the bio down below in the show notes. And, I appreciate it if you like and share. I got a Patreon. I have a store as well. You can find me on Facebook. Now, if you want to share any of your experiences or any of your stories, you can always hit me up at codexofcuriosities@gmail.com and share them with me. And, who knows? Maybe you'll be on my Codex of Curiosities. All right. Enough of me stumbling over words. I'm bringing Brad on. Hey, Brad. Welcome again. Welcome back to Codex of Curiosities.
What's up, brother? Everybody's going to be so tired of seeing this dumb face. I can tell you that much now.
Third time. Yeah. No, well,
yeah,
we were supposed to have on another guest that I thought would be really great for us all three to have a discussion, but unfortunately he has some family matters he has to get to, so it's you and me, and let's see where it takes us. Let's see where this conversation. I always say my conversations have legs, and they just walk and they just go in any different direction, and it usually becomes quite interesting. And I know that you and I have had some great stories, especially off the air too. Like we'll sit and talk before the episodes, and we'll sit and talk after the episodes. And we're saying, we really should just record these because it's some good quality stuff.
Yeah, dude, for sure, man. Dude, I need to. I bought a book about the Philadelphia experiment because that's a rabbit hole I've been wanting to go down because it crosses into like my world of talking about energy and vibrations and all this stuff. And I think that's what happened, dude. I think they were messing around with people's vibratory levels
Yep.
and they didn't know what they were doing. And so that's a very interesting. Like I really, if you know all about it, man, I'd love to hear more about it because
I don't
I
know
just don't.
enough. I know enough to be a little dangerous.
Mhm.
I've listened to Al Bielek off of Coast to Coast when he was on with Art Bell, and he went into depth about the Philadelphia experiment and how it tied into the Montauk as well, and in time travel. And he said that, if I recall, he said that he was an actual time traveler who he appeared back in 1984 and 19 or not back forward in 1984 and 1983, and they were actually expecting him and another sailor, and they actually had to send them back in time, to destroy the machine so they could stop this I don't know, event horizon almost, or this, not event horizon, but this event from collapsing maybe the timeline or anything else.
I think there's something like this for sure going on because in 2001, in February 2001, the Federal Communications, whatever, FCC, whatever the
Yeah, the
acronym
FCC.
is, yeah, they went to Congress and they requested that the Pentagon of the United States military had access to the 33 gigahertz signal that is the Earth to space communication signal. Because in their request, it was they were saying like, "Hey, we want," and ever since they got this request
Yep.
approved, nobody has been able to use the 33 gigahertz signal. Okay, which is, they have different signals, all the way from for Earth to space, Earth to marine, somebody who's out on a boat, all kind of different communication signals, some broadcasting signals, obviously, that you can broadcast your radio frequency on. But this one, they were specifically asking that the DoD only had access to this, and it was for Earth to space communications. And they needed it because as an emergency order because it was in preparation for a big event that was to come in the next
Okay.
few months. So did they know about 9/11 that had happened in in September of 2011? And were they trying to,
Wow.
right, like, were they working with these things? Were they
Hmm.
did they just get information from these things? Like, there's somebody knew something because, all of a sudden they needed in preparation for a big event, and what was the big event that happened in 2001? That's the only one that, was
Yep.
conscious shifting, was that penetrated the collective consciousness of the world because especially not just the world. I mean, especially the United States. I mean, it made us more patriotic. It was a big event, and I
It
don't know how
was.
everybody else saw it in the world, but to Americans, it was a big deal. It was a big thing that happened, and I was in the military, so we had the global war on terror, and I'd been in NATO bases and stuff, and every Canadians. Swedish army, everybody was at one base, and we were all fighting the global war on terror together. So,
Yeah.
um, so I would imagine that was an event that shifted the consciousness of everybody.
Yeah.
So again, my question is how did they know that something big was going to come? Was something telling them? That's the
Uh,
that,
you know what? Yeah, it was. Of course, I believe that that was well known in advance, but maybe they were communicating with someone else to say, just let it happen. I don't know. No intervention into this. We want this to happen. Now, I have a friend who was in the stock markets, and they said that, was it 2 days before, or I forget how long before, though, he knew that something big was going to happen because the stocks reacted prior to the event happening, and he was like, he noticed it, and he's like, oh, this is something big's going to happen. And then sure enough, this event, like you said, it caused everybody to be more patriotic, cause them to all come together and, bring the country together, kind of solidify the country. It's, and I'm not saying that, like, but it's almost like, is this going to happen again? Another event going to happen again? Because the country is so divided right now, left and right. It seems extremely divided. Are they going to cause some sort of event to bring it together again, to try unifying the country?
Yeah. Or was it, part of the agenda to kick off the global world order, the new world order of things, right? Because that was a big event
Mm-hmm.
that kind of, the 90s was pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like things were
Yep.
going pretty good in the 80s and 90s. There were a lot of bullshit going on around the world. And then 2001 happened, and all of a sudden things started changing pretty quickly after that. Then there was a lot more war and conflict, and natural disasters kicked off. I mean, you started, the 2004 tsunami happened, and then just
Yep.
constant hurricane and fire and everything since then. So like, I don't remember this. I mean, I'm only 41. I don't remember this stuff happening that often in the 80s and 90s,
I agree with you. Yeah, and crazy thing is I was on the island that tsunami hit. Not when it hit, but I was there. A couple months prior to it happening, and
Wow.
after it happened, I went back. Actually, I was already planning on going back, and I went back, so I got to see what was left. And it was amazing how fast they actually were rebuilding. It was probably like 3 months after it happened, and I went back to that location and see how fast they rebuilt. It was pretty phenomenal.
That was another conscious shifting event, right? It was like
yes.
400,000 people died. That was nothing. I mean, 9/11 was a big deal. It was 3,000 people died or whatever it
Mhm.
was, 3,500. I don't know the number exactly, but 400,000 is a big deal. Like
Yeah.
that's something on a different scale. You know what I mean? So
And it's not like tsunamis were never a thing growing up. Never. Like we never had to worry. Like it was never in the back of my mind. There was nothing ever brought up about tsunamis until that one event. Now it's like tsunami, Fukushima with the tsunami, and everything. It's all like everybody's got to watch out for these tsunamis. They're coming, and it's. I agree with you. It's kicking things off. And now, when you say like it's kicking off like this new world order kind of thing, it's funny that I actually had a dream that was very similar to this, like a large scale event that caused the whole world to come together to allow a one world government, a one world army, a one world, banking system as well. It was interesting.
I think it's been many events over the course of many years, actually since the 30s, that they've been trying to do this. They've been trying to usher in. I mean, if you look on the back of the U.S. dollar bill, underneath the pyramid, I don't know the Latin exactly, the ordo seclorum or something like that. I feel like if I say it, I'm gonna cast a spell and things are gonna start floating in my office. But but it's like it means a new order for the ages, and the person who implemented that on the dollar bill was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was the 32nd president,
Ooh.
who stayed an extra term, which technically made him the 33rd president. He was a 33-degree Freemason, and so like there's a whole bunch of stuff tied in there. But he was the one who made that, and I think they put it on the dollar bill in 1935, so he was the president then. So it's a very interesting, like there's always a tie into that's why when people start talking about how conspiracy theorists are crazy, and I'm like, dude, this. Like we didn't make this stuff up. We're just like reading and reporting this stuff and looking at
it's
things.
right in front of you. Yeah, we're actually seeing it and kind of putting it together. Like I agree, man. Everything is right in. Like, there was a documentary I watched once before called "In Plain Sight," and it is everything is in plain sight. Everything is there for you, but if you're told if you look at the pictures, but you're told a different story. And you told that different story over and over again, you're going to believe that story, and you're going to make the pictures work for you. Kind of, you're like, well, okay, yeah, I'm going to believe this story because I've been told this over and over again. They keep telling me this story, so I have to believe it. I won't question it. But like the truth is out there. The truth is out there. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, you know I'm a dummy. Do you yeah, you watch Tinfoil Hat, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so did you see the episode with Jim Lee and Topher Gardner?
I
It
have not.
was okay, so it was Tinfoil Hat number 702, and it's called The Mothra Effect of Laser Developed Atmosphere Systems on Weather with Jim Lee and Topher Gardner. Dude, it was one of the it was the most bomb ass episode I've ever seen in my life on Tinfoil Hat. And of course, Sam is always talking about Mount Crushmore, and I'm like, that was he admits too that that was like one of the best ones ever, because
Okay, I got to
this
hear that one.
dude, it was amazing. But you might have even maybe just forgot about it, but it's like so Jim Lee lives down the road from me. He's only about 25 minutes away, and we text, we talk. He's been on my show actually.
Yeah.
And since he was a kid, him and his, I believe this is how the story goes, him and his dad has always tracked hurricanes. And then they started noticing, like, as he got older, he continued tracking weather and things like that. And then it may be Topher that I'm flip-flopping here, but
Okay, no problem.
one or the other, it doesn't matter. It's the same concept. But Jim has a website called climateviewer.org, where he has a full-time job, but his other job is just monitoring the weather. And he's created all these amazing software. He's developed all this software and stuff and all these different programs to track weather. And man, dude, he goes deep with all this weather stuff. And Topher and him got together, and they were just vibing hard on this episode, because they were talking about how hurricanes are always present when like some big event happened, like when the Maui fires happened, and when 9/11 happened. There was a hurricane off the coast of 9/11. And
Really?
the way they explained this was that basically the government was using hurricanes. They were navigating these hurricanes in position, and then using the high pressure and the low pressure system to use directed energy weapons to eviscerate stuff. Dude, it was a
What?
wild episode. And they said that the same thing happened in Maui. And
Are you kidding me?
no, so like that sounds a little preposterous in normal
Wow.
world. It's like
Yeah, in normal world. Yeah, yeah. In normie world, yeah. But this
yeah.
is
Until you look up the fact that the headquarters of the directed energy weapons program in the Air Force is in Maui. And then it's like there's always a hurricane nearby that they use. There, and again, they describe it way better than I can, because I'm such a
Yeah.
dummy. But like, there's this thing that they have in space that they just guide it over, and then they beam something down and shoot it through this high pressure, low pressure system at whatever they need, and it just eviscerates stuff. And Topher and Jim was describing how, like in 9/11, for example, at the bottom of all the rubble, there was like thousands of toilets, because the porcelain, the clay, the porcelain toilets was made of clay, and it had a frequency that couldn't be
exploded. Like
yeah, just like eviscerated.
they couldn't hit that frequency that
Yes,
the clay was at, because
exactly.
if you match your frequency, you will destroy whatever you hit.
Exactly. And so talking to Jim about this, I mean, it blows my mind, dude. And like literally, and Jim was on for what's the guy, Del Bigtree. He was on Del Bigtree's show as well,
Mhm.
talking about all this. Not about this. He was talking about chemtrails and stuff in the episode.
I watched that episode because I'm a big fan of Dell,
Oh, are you?
and
Yeah.
I'm like, I messaged Jim actually because of that
Yeah.
episode, trying to get him on, but he's a buddy of yours. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
I need to get him on my show. Yeah.
He is so smart, dude. He's so intelligent, man, and he's
Yeah,
been doing
because
this for many years. So
he didn't really believe in chemtrails when he started the research. He was like, "Meh, not really." Like he was kind of like arguing against it until he did all this research and realized, no, this is legitimate. Like this is, yeah, because I found it fascinating. I really like when you follow
yeah, and
the truth and information, you get the truth.
so I was texting with him the day it came out, and he was essentially saying that he had to provide all the receipts, because they really wanted to do their thorough research on this stuff.
Yeah,
But what he
exactly.
was trying to say was, like, basically it's just like he's tired of talking about chemtrails, because it's like it's a dumbed down, like I can't remember the exact lingo he used, but it was like there's an argument, I guess, in the chemtrail world about something chemtrails and something else. And he's like,
Okay.
I'm over this argument because it's not even an argument. It's just a word that people use now. And I think he said that on Dell's show as well. But dude, if you're listening to this show,
Yeah.
uh, and you hear this
I gotta
episode,
hear that show.
yeah,
Yeah.
you go listen to Tinfoil Hat. Let me see it, number 702 with Jim Lee and Topher Gardner, and then listen to the episode on Del Bigtree, and you'll get caught up pretty quickly because Jim's the man, dude. He's the bomb.
Yeah, I heard that episode on Dell. You know, my wife is a huge fan of Dell, and you know, and I kind of like fell into him later, and I really enjoy his stuff. And I heard that when Jim was on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I actually went to his website and tried and messaged him, but I never got a response back. But I'm going to reach out to him again. I definitely will, and see if I can get him come on. But I think more on this directed energy weapons. It sounds, you know,
yeah,
it's hurricane tracking.
But he's not an infotainment kind of guy, which is like when he did my show, he was telling me that too. He's like, I'm more like put out the information. You know, he's like, I'm not really a front facing. Typically, he's not a front facing kind of a guy. But lately, he's been making his rounds. You know, and I think rightfully so. I mean, I told him, I'm like, dude, you got to go speak. You got to go like on the speaking circuit and get paid to do this stuff because between him and Topher, man, they have a wealth of knowledge on this kind of stuff that, you know, I learned a lot about frequencies and stuff like that from those guys just by listening to them talk. So, so some of the stuff I talk about, again, they can spit fire, but you know, I can just give you the chewed up bubblegum version of it, you know, and
I'm just downloading that episode on Tinfoil Hats, you know, 702, but
yes, it's the best.
I agree. See, and this is what I was saying the other day when I was talking with another guest of mine. I was saying that I really want to do all this research. I want to read all these books, but there's so many out there. And I feel though that what we're doing is our own research. Our own research is having our guests on tell us about their research that they've done. And, you know, it's kind of like us collecting it all. And that's when I say, you know, it's like my codex of curiosities. It's a book of collection of, okay, I got this information from, you know, from this person. I got this information from this person, and we can put it together. And this is me doing my research. Not only that, though, of course, I'm reading on the side as well. But I have a hard time trying to get, you know, cracking a book open or something like that. It's difficult. So sitting here and listening to people tell me their truths, and, you know, and fitting that piece of puzzle into my puzzle is exactly what I do, and what I think it's, you know, priceless.
Correspondence theory and coherence theory of truth, right? Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, and I might have said it on your show before. If I have, I'm sorry.
No worry. No, I tell me about this.
So coherence theory of truth, or let's just say correspondence, is like you and I both agree that that's a gray shirt, right?
Yeah,
that's a correspondence. We're corresponding. We both agree that that's a gray shirt that you're wearing, or this is a teal shirt or turquoise or whatever that I'm wearing. Yeah. Correspondence theory, coherence theory of truth is when, like, I'll use, and the best way to describe this is, like, there's a chair in my office. I feel like I did tell you this. I don't know. Anyways, there's a chair in my office right now. This is a black chair in my office. And so a lot of things would have to correspond before that becomes a reality, before that becomes a truth. Okay. So like when you see a chair, an office chair in an office by a desk, so all these things have to correspond. Is it a chair? Okay. Yes, it is a chair. Is it in an office? It is in an office. Is it in a desk, by a desk? It is by a desk. Is it in front of a computer? It is in front of a computer. So this is a bunch of like things that are cohering in order to make that a truth. So along the way, you have to believe that all of those things in order to believe that that is a black chair in your office, right? But if you saw this chair just sitting in the desert, the Sahara Desert by itself, and you just kept looking at it like, what is that? You know how when you see somebody out of place and you're like, I know this guy from somewhere or girl, and I don't know where. that's what it is. It's like your mind hasn't caught up to the cohering thoughts or the cohering places. And
Like
so
the
what you
the additional you know additional thoughts that or ideas that were able for you to figure out what it is or who that is.
Yeah, well, you typically, like, I saw somebody the other day, he came up to me at the gas station, and when he saw me, he was like, "Hey, man." And dude, I just stood there and looked at him and said, "Hey, dude," and like he was walking up to me, and as
Yeah,
he was walking
I
up
know
to
that all
me,
too well.
I
Yeah.
was going through the places in my mind to
Mhm.
make that correspond or to make that cohere with who this is. And so I went through work, I went through, grocery store, I went through this, I went through coaching Little League baseball. And when I got to coaching Little League baseball, I went, oh, okay, that's where it coheres, or that's where it, makes the
That's where.
most sense. Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
so I saw him out of place, just like if I saw a chair in the Sahara Desert out of place, I would be like, what the fuck is that thing? What is that? What is there an office around here? Like, what is going on here? Like,
You know
so
what's crazy you say that though is I was literally at my friend's farm and they had a rock pile and there was an office chair sitting in the rock pile. And it was just kind of funny because you're mentioning like this chair that's out of place. And I was staring at this chair and I was like, what? It's like the wheels are turning, but like, why is that there? What is that? Kind of thing. And so I understand what you're saying.
But I think that's what happens when people see cryptids and shit, because it's like when they see them, they don't know where to reference that, right? They don't know where to reference that reality, where to reference that truth.
Mhm.
And I think the reason why I was talking about that is because, like, I think everybody can create their own truths because of that. Like
Yep.
somewhere along the way, we can get lost in our own, our own idea of what an office is, or what a desk is, or what a computer is, or what a computer chair is. So along the way, if one of those things doesn't cohere, then it branches off a new reality for yourself, right?
Mhm.
It almost creates a new version of you, like a different parallel dimension. You go
Yep.
into another dimension or something, right? And it's like, but eventually, man, those when and that's why we're so separated in this country, and specifically in this country. All other countries are the same way, I guess, but in this country, in my country, United States, it's like everybody's separate because everybody has been convinced of their own truth, like and they can't be convinced in any other way. They just know Trump as, the devil, and
Orange man bad. Mhm.
yeah, that's it. And
Yeah.
so they don't know any other truth. And so it really is a truth to them because they've heard it so many times on TV. That's why and since we're talking about frequencies, and that's why they continue to put out stuff on in the media. It doesn't even you and I like, who believes this crap?
Yeah.
But they continue to put it out because it's very important to get that image out there, to get that vibration out there into the world, because thoughts are vibrations, and vibrations create our reality.
Yeah.
It vibrates things into matter, into material, right? And so, um, again, the evil one can't create. Only we can. Only God's creations can create. Uh,
Yeah.
and we're made in His image and all that stuff. So, like,
So so
that's
so so they're feeding us the ideas,
yes, and we're creating
like the
them.
sparks. They're giving us the sparks of creation kind of thing, like or the ideas to create, and we are creating those realities.
Yeah, but
By
what we're doing is we're like the clay, the porcelain toilets for 9/11, right? It's like, when the laser beam hit 9/11, the towers in 9/11 on 9/11, it didn't shatter the toilets, like we were just saying. Like, maybe we're putting off that frequency that can't be shattered, right?
yeah.
But what they can do is they can take us off the air, or they can put duct tape on us or whatever. They can handicap us in some way, but they can't stop that resonant frequency from shattering their frequency, right? Or that dissonant frequency from
Mhm.
shattering their resonant frequency. So, I think it all, again, this all lines up with what we're talking about with the Philadelphia experiment. I think they've known about this kind of stuff for a long time,
Yeah.
and they know that when things enter our reality, they vibrate into our reality. So when they come into reality through plasma portals or whatever, that's what they're doing. They're uh it's just like Spock. Yeah, I mean, just like Star Trek when Scotty
Yeah.
beams them up, that's what's happening. They're
Right.
they're
Yeah.
they're
Their particles are changing form, so they're not completely here, but they're not, like, they're partially here, but they're not completely here. And
Yep.
that is why I believe, like, sailors were fused, because maybe at some point they were denser, or they were just kind of moving through. Like, almost think of it like in space, where there's maybe no gravity. It depends on what your thoughts are. But they're kind of like shifting through, and some people were shifting through this, unable to move themselves, not knowing how to move themselves in this period. And I agree. It's kind of like they're they're phasing in and out is what it is, and you're not fully there. And yeah, it's I feel I actually feel that they really knew what they were attempting to do. Subvertly, they knew. The story up front is, we're trying to be invisible to the enemy radar. Yeah, I think that was one thing that they were trying to do, but that's just the tip of the iceberg of what they were actually trying to do. Trying to make the ship completely ethereal, in another plane, possibly.
Well, I think the ions, and that's what plasma is plasma is ions. I think it still existed in this environment, but it was all separated. It was all
Okay.
just ions in this little plasma pool, if you will. And
Yeah.
then when they came back in, these the ship and the people didn't have, the ions didn't match up. And so they were all like, trying to form whatever they could. And they didn't know how to control that.
Yeah.
And that's why people were, half in, I did hear all this stuff, but the half
Yeah.
in the ship, half not, and body parts everywhere and different things like that, is because I think that they just didn't know how to reform. They probably did go somewhere else, but they didn't know how to reform when they came in. And I think that
And
these aliens and stuff, these Nephilim, they've mastered that,
yeah.
how to shift in and out of realities.
So, do you feel that the form then, because when it came back, like, in essence, it was still the same shape, the same form. Even the people were the same shape, the same form, though they might have been sharing the same space, and that was the issue. So, like, for it to have a memory to go back to that same form, but you are saying, though, it was still there. You believe it still was there. It just was vibrating differently, and like the ions were there. So I'm question, like, one question I have is, when you pass through these portals and you are, okay, when Spock is being beamed up and it's being turned into all these molecules, how, or all these whatever, how do they know how to reform into the same shape that they were originally? Like, so when they come through, and how do they have this memory factor in them, like this physical memory factor? Is it just, this is how you see yourself, so that is how your form will exist then?
Maybe it's like a 3D printed template on the other side. You know how, like, on Star Trek, they always had another place that they beamed into, right? And maybe there's like
Mm-hmm.
almost like a scan on the other side that knows what form to take. You know what I mean? Like a 3D
Yeah.
printed thing or
Yeah,
whatever. And
yeah.
it's just, as soon as you hit the button, it's like you go over it. And maybe when you go over to the other realms, you kind of can take any shape you want, any form you want, whatever's existing in that other realm. I don't know, dude. I mean, it makes me wonder too. Like, is it like when you turn yourself into, plasma, and you
Yeah.
go to the other side, can you turn yourself into something else, or is it just like you're just in this infinite consciousness that exists, this infinite plasma field of consciousness that exists, that, like when they look into space, yeah, I don't think they're looking into outer space. I think they're
I
looking
don't think so
into
either.
inner space, right? It's like they're looking at, like, and I have a theory behind all that, but they're looking inward to the different dimensions. And they have to, the reason I say that is because they actually use a telescope a binocular telescope that has a prism in it, and which is a reverse prism actually. That they reverse the prism and they have to cool down the scope they have to cryogenically freeze the scope just to be able to see it, into space. And my theory on that is that obviously we're in the visible light of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yep.
And then these things around us are in the unseen world, and they're different vibrations. On one side, it's very cold, and the other side is very hot. So if they want to see into one side, they have to heat it up. If they want to see into the other side, they have to cool it down. Okay. So again, I don't know if you ever look at the pictures from like the James Webb telescope and all this stuff, it's like, I think that they're taking pictures of space like around us, not space up there with Mars and all that stuff. And so when you see this stuff, what does it look like? It looks like giant plasma fields, those nebulas and all these, right? I mean, so like, do you just go into that place and you just exist as this plasma glob or whatever, and this is the only place that you can materialize into something? I don't know.
Interesting theory. Very interesting. I find that really fascinating because it's unknown. It's completely unknown until we actually do it ourselves and we actually consciously go there. What about astral travel? What do you think about astral travel? Like when your consciousness is going away, because that's not a form. Is that kind of do you think that's possibly a form of like plasma travel, or you are a plasmoid and you are astrally traveling? Your astral body is some sort of plasma. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, but I look at it as like electricity. Like maybe we're just turning into this flowing energy form, right? That's like just flowing through the wires at that point. And that's why you can go from place to place quickly, shoot up around, and everybody says you can see things, but you don't have a body. You just are like a bodiless entity or something that's kind of floating around, and you can see everything. Somehow. I don't know how that's possible, but
have you ever astral traveled yourself?
No, dude, but I've been texting a friend of mine today. He's gonna come on my show and talk about it because I just don't know a lot about it. I would imagine that it's similar to having like out of body experiences or DMT experiences or something like that. I just don't know enough about it. I do know a lot about near death experiences and DMT experiences because I'm fascinated with them. So like I watch them like, episodes of the Kardashians or something.
the NDE, the NDEs are amazing. I do find those absolutely fascinating, especially when, well, those are fascinating. And I also find like to the flip side, not NDEs, but when people remember their past lives as well. I find those super, super interesting. There was an episode or a series on Netflix where they did this. They covered all different aspects. They covered NDEs for one episode. They covered past lives for another episode. And mediumship. They spent 2 episodes on mediumship, which I thought was a little overrated. But the NDEs were really interesting. I personally have had one out of body experience, which was. I'm not sure if I ever told you about that. I was like, how old was I? So I would say I was about 9-10 years old, and I was running a race, and I decided I was a little bit behind the main crowd, and I wanted to push myself a little harder. So I pushed myself, and when I did, I literally pushed myself out of my body, and I was watching everybody else run from up above, about 15, 20 feet up above, and that's when I saw myself running, and it was like, whoop, I sucked right back into my body and finished the race. And then I decided that I should tell everybody what happened. And at that point, I was the weird kid, and no one believed me as well, of course.
That's crazy, man. I mean, so you didn't even shoot up through you didn't go through that and go up through the tunnel.
It was just like
the levels and
it was immediately, and I was watching everybody, including watching everybody run at first, and then myself.
I've been in fist fights before. Not to dismiss anything you're talking about, by the way, but I've been in fist fights, and I used to cut backflips when I was a kid. I used to have this guy give me a boost. I don't know if you know what boosting is, where you stick your foot in somebody's hands and then they flip you.
Oh, and they go like
backflip.
this. Yeah.
And I did that. And so the first time I used to do it all the time, and I would do amazing backflips. But then I landed on my head one time, and it like blacked out. Like I blacked out, and it was like a complete vibration that I'd never felt before. And it's a similar feeling when you get punched in the face. I've been in a lot of fist fights before as well. I used to be a little redneck kid, so I've been in a lot of fist fights before, and it's similar, man. It's the whole realm of like there's something special about us for sure. First of all, that when you get into a fist fight, if you haven't ever been in one,
Oh yeah, I've been in a
oh,
lot
okay.
when I was younger. I used to
Yeah,
fight a
yeah.
lot when I was younger. Yeah.
Yeah, same, man. I grew up like I used to go to all black school, so like I was fighting all the time, dude. It was like I was getting spit on and kicked and called all kind of different words, but I had to defend myself, me and my brothers. But um anyhow, man, like I think when that thing jolts you, it like first of all, when somebody's swinging a fist at you, for me at least, it's always slow motion. It always feels like the Matrix. It always feels like tunnel vision. I'm hyper focused on this person. I think that's fight or flight that's kicking in, but
Yep.
it's always like a weird. It's always like a weird feeling. And like I said, when you hit your head or get hit, it's like it jolts you, and it's like when you static. For those who aren't old enough to remember the TVs, when you would turn the channels, as all those the
Yeah.
staticky channels that you'd flip through.
Snow. Yeah.
That's kind of what happens. So that makes me think that this world is very, electrical, because when you get that jolt, when you get those feelings, it feels very electric. Like, you get that snowy, like you lost the channel that you're on, and then all of a
Yep.
sudden you're back to it. Was that kind of what it was like? Did you kind of lose your channel and then back to your channel?
I did. It was, yeah, it was just for an instant, but it was when I came to the realization that I could see myself running, then it was like instantly sucked back in, because it was the realization that I'm not where I should be. Like
Oh, so your
I'm
body was still like on autopilot?
my body was still on autopilot running.
That's
Yeah,
crazy, man.
yeah,
So
and
that lends a little evidence to the NPC stuff too. It's like
true.
soulless drones that are just out there just moving about, because that's what your body was. That's what your meat.
It was a drone. Yeah, my meat
Yeah,
suit.
your meat suit was out
I
there.
it was a drone at that time, and I
Yeah.
was up above, and that lends credence to what I was talking earlier about, like I think we talked about this on your show, or was it? No, 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 no. I was talking with Bettina about this, about soul shard retrievals. When like a little pieces of us are, so in the shamanic world, little pieces of us are lost every traumatic experience. So anytime you have a traumatic experience, a little piece of you is left at that experience. And in the shamanic world, it's the shaman will go and retrieve these lost pieces, these lost shards, kind of like the dark crystal, when you got the little piece of the shard that's missing and you put it back together. That's what his job is, to go between worlds and go between times and find those pieces and bring you back, so you become more whole, so you become maybe less of an NPC. And maybe these big shocking events, like these tsunamis, these terrorist attacks and whatnot, they're causing us to lose more of our consciousness, our sentience, and we're becoming more into these drones, these NPCs, which is a possibility as well. It's kind of like we have these little pieces away from us. And Bettina was talking about this as in there's a Christian way of actually bringing back the soul back into the body, like bringing pieces of your soul back into your body. And I was like, well, it's strange that the shamanic world talks about this as well, with the soul shard retrievals. And so I found it really interesting. And now that you're saying that, oh, your body was still a drone, your meat suit was still running, and I'm like, very interesting, because
Yeah.
like my whole consciousness, or majority of my consciousness was out.
Yeah.
So what does that say? Our bodies are still able to function. We can function on autopilot.
Or what if this is just like a video game that you can just jump in and out of anytime you want. You can just jump into your avatar and then leave, but the game still goes on. Which again, that makes me think about like how people can pull from the Akashic record, and
Mhm.
like everything is like it feels predestined. It does, man. It just feels like everything is exactly how it should be. And I know that's how God made it, right? And so whether you want to look at God as the creator of the simulation or God as the creator of the world that we think that we live in, where we're these entities that
Yeah.
and I heard Theo Vaughn, by the way, is so smart. He doesn't get a lot of credit for being smart, but he's super smart, dude. I heard him say something. Somebody asked him about aliens, and he's like, "Dude, we're the aliens." And I'm like, "Yes, we are." I think about that all the time because, like, we're the only thing that doesn't match up with everything, and that's what he said. So I'm not
Yep.
taking. I'm not. This isn't original to me, but that's what he said. He's like, if you think about it, we're the ones who are different from everything else. Everything else knows about each other in nature. They know about the lions, know about these gazelles, and the different bugs know about each other. The birds communicate, but we're the only ones who can't communicate with anybody else. And it's like,
Mm.
it almost feels like we're in this. And he's right, because it almost feels like we are the aliens, and that's what I think. And I think you and I were talking about this the other day. Was whenever I see people, their faces shift. I don't know
Yeah.
how to explain this. And I was actually telling my brother about this one day. I was like, you know how when you look at somebody that you've known your whole life and you look at their face for a minute and their face looks different. He's like, no, I have no clue what you're talking about. I'm like, I wish people did, because
Yeah.
people's face, like I've looked at your face a lot, right? But and I could tell you, I could describe you or whatever, but like if I sat there in person and I looked at your face close up, it would start to kind of look different to me for some
Yeah.
reason. I don't know how to explain that, but so I think that again, I didn't mean to go on a journey here, but it's like I feel
No.
like we're sort of these we're just we're just jumping in and out of characters. And I feel like everything is maybe there's upgrades in the video game. There used to be, like, I think about it in terms of like Fortnite, because my kid plays Fortnite. It's like, and I
Yeah.
do too sometimes, I can't lie. But Fortnite gets an update, and then like where what used to be a mountain is now like it has now become a building or something like that. But it still looks kind of like a mountain, but it's a building now. And I almost feel like maybe that's kind of what's happening in our reality. So when these pyramids they still exist,
Yeah.
but maybe they have a different function. They used to have a different function in an old version of the video game a long time ago, kind of thing. And because I think that's what happens when people are out there hunting. Like you hear stories all the time about people who are in the woods and they see a group of Civil War soldiers walk by, or
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
stuff like that. I think it's just upgrades to the game that just bleed into the newer versions.
Have
Or
you have you ever seen the movie Dark City?
no, that it sounds familiar though.
Okay, this is a fascinating movie, and I'm not sure
I'll
if I
look it
brought
up.
this up in the past, but in this movie, there is a selection of humans that have been taken and they're put onto this plane. Okay, they into this city.
The
They're
bad guy
put.
looks like fucking Klaus Schwab. I'm looking at
You're
this movie.
googling it, yes,
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell, dude?
and it's so interesting. So what they do is these aliens are trying to find a way to make us humans inhabitable for their spirits, because they want to adjust us, genetically adjust us. And when you're saying moving, when there's an update, so what they do is they would stop the world at a certain time. So I think it was, let's just say at midnight, everything would stop and they would shift buildings would change, buildings would get bigger. A person who lived in poverty, they would come, there was actually a doctor who would come, inject them with new memories, and their poverty would be gone. They'd be living like really rich then, they'd be living this huge mansion instead. And it was injecting these memories and trying to create this trying to create this perfect being, this hybrid for them that they could inhabit. And the ability for them to do this was called cubing. They were able to cube, and it was a fascinating movie,
I
and
love I love the mind bending stuff like that, dude. That just gets you really
Right?
thinking about reality. What one movie that I saw was Fire in the Sky, obviously the Travis Walton abduction, right?
Yeah.
It's like I was watching that, and well, first of all, when you hear a lot of these abduction scenarios, it's always like, what do these things tell you? Do not be afraid, or they telepathically communicate, do not be afraid, or I'm not here to harm you, or whatever.
Yeah.
And they do something to you. They give you, they put a chip in you. They give you some, they heal something. They've healed people who had broken legs or whatever, heart issues, or can't see or can't hear or whatever. They've healed that stuff. Have you ever heard these kind of stories before on your
I
show?
have. Not on my show, not on my show, but I've heard them before. Yes. Yeah.
But I think that's what's happening, like so the Travis Walton thing sticks in my mind because I have this vision, I have this image stuck in my mind of this, because he described how these alien things, these Nephilim, got right up in his face real close and was like, communicating with him and stuff.
Mhm.
And then that vision is stuck in my head. And what always just I think about all the time, it just swirls around in my head all the time, is like, how can they how can they turn on and off our consciousness? How can they disconnect us from, because the missing time would be like 2 hours, 3 hours for people, or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
even if it's 45 minutes. But how do they do that? How do they just affect your consciousness and shut off your hard drive, and then you forget everything? How can they do that? I think about that nonstop because that's one of the biggest things to me. It makes me think that they are like, they had some kind of a role in creating us, and
Mhm.
that they're like
That makes
tweaking us, like
sense.
you said. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
they're upgrading us, or like I feel like they're the help desk almost. And I've said
I
that
remember, yeah,
before.
you had said that. I
Yeah.
remember that phrase. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like definitely, yeah. How are they able to access our memories so easily and repress those memories, cause that memory, just to be to disappear, or to replace it with what we call like screen memories, like, oh, we're going to put something else up front and we're going to pretend to think that this didn't really even happen. And it's interesting. Now, what are your thoughts about, like, okay, so we're talking about like abduction. What about in dreams, dream abductions? Okay, so I'm not talking sleep paralysis or anything like that, but I'm talking having a dream of actually being abducted. Do you believe that that is actually happening, or is it just because why would you dream being abducted or operated on by aliens?
Well, I just had Vicky Joy Anderson on my show, and I
Yeah.
just released the episode last night, and she talks about this. Her idea of sleep paralysis is not you laying in a bed and something laying on top of you and taking
Hmm.
your soul. She thinks it's the end of an abduction, like it's them leaving you, and you've been abducted all night, and then they've left you. There's been times where, like, it's felt like I was in a dream, and it's felt like something was like it felt like I was being controlled in some way, and I didn't like it because I don't like being controlled at all. And
Yeah.
anytime I've ever been put under for anesthesia or whatever, they say I turn into the Hulk, because I like the anesthesia doesn't work on me because I'm a redhead and a blonde.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't like being controlled at all. And I've had dreams where it felt like I was being controlled, like I was being held down, like I couldn't move. Like
Mhm.
it really felt real, to where when I woke up, you know how when you pull the covers up over your head because you're scared, or
Of
you tuck
course.
your feet, you tuck your
Then you're
feet.
you're safe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you tuck your feet in so nothing can touch your feet or touch your arm. It felt
Yeah.
like something was in the vicinity of me. You know what I mean?
Really.
It felt like
Yeah.
something was near me after that particular dream. And so, like, I do think that there's something happens where your soul, like, I don't know, man. Maybe it's like it goes to the other place to charge, like a Tesla does. It just sits
Okay.
there and charge in some
Yeah.
on some other, because that's another thing that the Travis Walton movie talked about. That's what Travis Walton said, was he could remember just seeing all these bodies kind of like cocooned, and like also like in these watery tanks or something.
Mhm.
And it's like, are they
It's
creating
been
us
so long.
there?
It's been so long that I don't remember that. But that's yeah, that
Yeah,
is.
so but it's like, are they creating us there?
Mhm.
Or are they just like charging, are we going back to some kind of a charging station or something like that, dude? I don't know. My overarching thought is like these things are not good. They created us, or they have this hand not in creating us, I'm sorry. They had this hand in affecting our reality, and they can manipulate us, and they might can even like alter the way we look, right? Or like they can alter our experience somehow, because that's what I
Yes,
think happens when people like look in
I
the mirror
agree.
and they hate themselves, and they're like, I think that there's demons attached to them making them believe something else, like there's something, they're bad, they're ugly, they're whatever. And I think that's why people commit suicide, or whatever the case is. They're not
Yep.
good enough. So I don't. I'm kind of, it's muddy with how I feel about what they do with us. Like I said, I was just saying that they were the help desk, but it's more like they know how we operate, and they can just manipulate us any way they want. And I don't know that they created us, or they had a hand in it, or if they just like keep us in this realm, like this is a prison, and we can't never leave. You heard about people saying don't go
Prison
to the light.
Planet, the
Yeah,
Prison
yeah,
Planet. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I've heard that theory.
So
Definitely.
like, I don't know, man. My main idea of all that is God created us,
Hmm.
and they don't like that God created us, and so they do everything they can to try to manipulate us, and alter us and change us. And I think they try to breed with us, and that's what a lot of these abductions are about.
Oh, I totally agree. I think that we have we're being experimented on so that we can possibly, maybe their disembodied spirits can inhabit us a lot easier. That they can create these shells, maybe somehow to bind with our souls. So if they're able to bind with our souls, then they have an access into heaven. They have a kind of like a backdoor access, because the Nephilim were never allowed back in. The fallen were never allowed back in. They once that hit that point, they're subjected to stay here for all eternity. And so possibly, are they finding a way to copy our souls, or to attach onto our
Yes.
souls, or like a symbiote of sorts, or a parasite? Mhm.
And that's what I was trying to get at. So that's why I was saying it was muddy. And you said a word just now, like the back door. And so how
Yeah.
I think of like, I build websites and stuff. So how I think of like coding is like when someone builds a website, there's a lot of terrible actors out there who will create what's called a backdoor into the code that they can access anytime. And I think that's kind of what I'm talking about, is like God created us, but they know the backdoor code to steal all
Yep.
our information and stuff like that. That's kinda how so when you said backdoor, I'm like, that was the word I was looking for, was like, they're like hijacking us in some way,
Yep.
and manipulating us. So using the analogy of like help desk and backdoor and all that stuff kind of, fits in, is what I'm trying to say.
No, it definitely does. It definitely does. And it, like I feel, as I stutter along here, I feel that a lot of movies really give us the true insight into what's really going on. And like I said, that movie Dark City is kind of like this. They're trying to manipulate us. They're working with our memories. They're erasing our memories. They're changing the world. They're trying to find a way to hack into us and to control us. But yeah,
Hey, dude,
it's
that's so
really, really interesting.
there's a guy named William Hurt in this movie. I'm looking at the IMDb right now, and he looks a
Okay.
lot like, the Black Rock guy. What's his name?
Ooh.
Oh, man, I don't remember his name. The
I
main
can't
guy
on
at
the
BlackRock, but
I can't on the
Jack,
top of my head.
is it Jack something? BlackRock. Let me look it up. CEO Larry Fink. Yeah.
Larry Fink. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah, he looks
yes.
just like Larry Fink. It's a guy named William Hurt. It sucks, dude. So it's weird, man. It's like, oh, dude, look, there's a guy named Mitchell Butel in the movie that looks similar to you.
What?
That's wild. That's wild. You gotta look at the IMDb real quick, dude. That's
Okay,
crazy.
okay. Yeah, I can see William Hurt, Jennifer McCauley. Which one looks like me?
Mitchell Butel. Just similar, not really
Yeah,
exactly like that.
yeah. I'll have to. Oh, Mitsubuto. Oh, okay.
Yeah, a little
Hustlebeck.
bit.
Who the heck is
Yeah.
Hustlebeck? Yeah.
So again, man, are we creating this world around us? Are we projecting these little truths and realities as we go along? Like, are we,
Mhm.
are we the computers that are building the reality as we go? Because that's kind of what it feels like sometimes. You ever?
Oh, okay. So that brings me to something that I was just talking about yesterday, which is the double slit experiment.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the dude. Listen, that's the prism stuff. That bleeds into the prism talk. But go ahead.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because if there's no observer, the photons act in a wave like a ripple form, But if there's an observer, then they act like particles. So
Yeah.
the observer, and there's an in between point too when you're about to look at it too. So what it means is it's like it renders differently for the observer. So the observer, in my opinion, creates a reality. Like you have, by your observation, an effect on how and what reality really is. It is one of the most fascinating experiments I think that anybody should ever believe. It's or not believe, but should see. It's something that is mind blowing. This is quantum entanglement, quantum physics, quantum mechanics all together, and it's showing you that we have control to
Yeah,
of what.
and that leads and that talk and that goes into the quantum that's quantum entanglement, right? Like so essentially, if one thing is acting another way, that means on the opposite side it's acting the opposite way. So if you
Yes.
see it as this, that means on the opposite side it's acting as something else. So what
Mhm.
that is essentially like the upside down, which is like the Stranger Things, right? It's like as
Mhm.
above, so below. You've heard that before. It's the
Yes.
so if there's a good version of you here, there might be a bad version of you in the upside down, right? Or in
Yeah.
the alternate universe of yourself.
Hold on one quick second here.
Your puppy.
Well, so sorry for
Yeah,
cutting you off there.
no, that's okay. But like what happens is you affect a particle of a photon in one way, the opposite way can feel it. And so like and I've talked about this on one of the first couple episodes of my show. I was trying to talk to myself and it was really hard to do. But essentially, when you see this, excuse me, the show Stranger Things, 11, excuse me, again, I'm sorry. 11 was like they put her in front of a Coke can. This was like the first season. They
Yeah.
put her in front of a Coke can and they told her to crush that with her mind. And she crushes the Coke can. Well, I think that it's what she's doing is she's affecting the upside down when so everything has there's matter and there's antimatter is what
Mhm.
it is.
Yes. Yes.
And so like if a Coke can is cylindrical and there's nothing in the middle of it, that means that something that's in the middle is on the opposite side. It's in the upside down. And so the idea was that Elle was accessing that world with her mind, and she could affect that the can not in the material world, but in the antimatter world. So for example, if you look at a frequency, a wave, uh, the wavelength of a frequency of
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
look at the wavelength, like what the crest of it and how it goes up and down. So
Mhm.
at every crest, that there's a lot of space underneath it. That means that there's an opposite. So for every mountain that's here on Earth, that means that there's a cavern that's the same size underneath on the other side, right? And so for every wavelength, the opposite of that wavelength is the antimatter, is what I'm saying. And
Okay,
so
so
the
so if anybody's trying to telepathically move things, like we're all trying to use the Jedi Force, and we're all like, "I'm gonna make this can move." Perhaps you're not. Perhaps you're concentrating on the wrong thing. You're concentrating on the
yes,
can and not the other side of it that you should be actually trying to move.
yeah, you try to affect the antimatter
Mhm.
rather than the observable thing that you're looking at, which is like you said, you're observing something in front of you, and it has this is your reality. This is what this is the slit experiment that you're experiencing. But again, every photon is the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
The good within the bad within the good. And so there's going to be, the inverse of something, right? And so if you can learn to take yourself out of the material world and into the anti-material world and affect that part, then that's
Yeah.
when, and I think that that's what happens with, I think that when there's been, bombs, and I think that that's why a lot of times these things will come into our reality and try to like disarm nuclear bombs and stuff like that, is because like if we affect something here, if we blow something up here, it affects it on the other side too, right?
Ooh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You're causing destruction. Okay. I like that theory. I really find it's kind of like the way I started this episode was like this mind bending kind of experiment about affecting areas and jumping to different worlds, which could be just the inverse world of what we see. It could have been sent to the inverse and affected that the upside down.
Yeah, you know how they say what they say that there's an ocean underneath the ocean that's bigger
Yeah,
than the ocean that we have. Like that's kind of
yeah.
what I think about is like, or like how Journey to the Center of the Earth was like not to the actual center of the Earth, but to the other side somehow. They've gotten to the upside down somehow. Maybe
Mm.
dinosaurs exist there still, and they don't exist here. I don't know, man. It's an interesting thought. I got a first edition of that book, by the way, Journey to the Center of
Really,
the Earth.
Jules Verne, first
Yeah,
edition of the wow.
yeah.
That's cool. That is cool. I used to collect books until I moved away, and then I had to get rid of a lot of my books, and it was sad to see them go. But I do have a bunch in storage, and I gotta get my storage stuff out. I gotta put up some bookshelves and get back to reading again.
See, my problem is, man, is I have a lot of thoughts on things, but I'm not smart enough to be dangerous with stuff. You know what I mean? Like I know a lot
I
about,
know exactly what you mean. I know
like I know,
exactly.
like I have these ideas, but then if somebody was to challenge those ideas, I go, yeah, you're probably right. I'm just dumb. But like there's a book I'm about to read called A New Science of Heaven by Robert Temple. I was about to say Robert Plant, not Robert Plant, obviously, Robert Temple. And it's about plasma science. It's all about plasma science, and so like I feel like I get downloads somehow of
Yeah.
information about
Yes.
stuff, but I don't have enough data about it. I just know
Mhm.
that that's a thing that exists, like plasma portals, but I don't know much. Like we can talk
Like
about.
you're just scratching the surface. You have enough
Yeah,
to make yourself dangerous, almost in a way. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I,
But to
I
get down to the nitty-gritty of it, to the scientific talk of it, that's whenever look, I failed biology and physics in high school. I barely graduated high school, dude. So
I
like,
failed physics as well.
yeah,
Chemistry though was my strong point. Chemistry was my strong point, which was fascinating. I
I did.
actually just had a. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say I did great in college though, man. I graduated top of my class in college, but
There we go. There we
yeah,
go. I had a guest on recently as well. That interview will be coming out, I don't know, in a couple of weeks. He talks about his downloads and very, very interesting. But Brad, I think I'm going to wrap this up here. I
sure,
really
brother.
like this conversation. We're getting past that hour point, and thanks for jumping in tonight. I was supposed to
Sure.
we're supposed to have a third party on this on this interview, but he bailed. But I'm glad that you came through.
Yeah, man. Thank you again for having me. As always, I'm sure like I said, I'm sure your viewers and listeners are like, "Damn, this dude again." But I love talking
I
to you, man. I like the
No, I
flow
think
of things.
yeah,
It's
we
like,
have a great conversation. I like
yeah,
us bouncing ideas off, and it's kind of like building. We each have a part of this like a block. We're putting these blocks together, and you lay down the foundation, I lay the next level, and then you got the next level, and we just
yeah.
keep going. We just keep going. Yeah,
That's what I think it's all about, man. That's why I'm doing this. So, but yeah, thank you for having me,
fantastic.
dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome, Brad. Thank you so much. All right. All right, everyone. I want to say thank you for joining us tonight for another. This is a bonus episode. It's a follow up to Brad's episode that that was dropped on Thursday. So this will be dropping on the weekend, of course. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for coming out, enjoying this, and keep your mind open. There's always things out there that are just pay attention. Pay attention. don't believe everything you're told. Just pay attention to, what you believe. Trust your gut, and then go after and follow that research and look into it for yourself to get your own answers. And with that, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
I look forward to our next adventure together as we navigate the mysteries that lie ahead. Until our paths cross again, keep your curiosity wandering and ensure the light remains lit.